maybe, or today it didn't happen, I think. Or did it?
It was at
Happened.
6:200.
It happened.
It
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I think because of ICC, we did not even realize where our stock went. Okay.
It happened today. It's a landmark.
Great. All right, very good to go.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel discussion. I know all of you already know the topic, but just to set the context, board examinations are actually a very detrimental part in deciding a student's career. And because of the entire pandemic, it has been specifically stressful for our 10th and 12th graders. So to help us understand that and navigate through the whole board examination assessment process, we have a panel of these amazing esteemed experts with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to introduce our first panelist. So we have with us Dr. Skand Bali, Principal Head of School, the Adani Group. Dr. Skand Bali has been involved in education since 2000. He's currently working as the headmaster of Adani Group. He has previously served as the principal of Hyderabad Public School, GD Goenka World School, Gurugram, served for 12 years at Doon School, Dehradun, and 5 years at Army Public School, Dakshai. Dr. Bali is highly regarded as an effective school educator with an illustrious career in some of the premier institutes of the country. While serving as the housemaster of Tata House in the Doon School, Dehradun, he was dynamically invested and instrumental in leading his house to the top position in the school, both in academics and extracurricular activities. Welcome, sir. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we also have Mr. Arjun Rao, head of school at JBCN International School. An education enthusiast, novelist, writer, visionary is what describes Mr. KV Arjun Rao in the field of education. As a principal of JBCN International School, Oshiwara, Mr. Rao strives to encourage educators and learners to spread their wings and aim for the horizon. Mr. Rao brings with him nearly 2 decades of experience as an educator, having worked with some of the finest schools in the country, from the Doon School, Dehradun, to Oak Ridge International School in Bengaluru, and later Hyderabad. Mr. Arjun Rao ensures that the teachers he works with are trained to develop inquisitiveness and curiosity in learners. The learner is asked to question, think, and analyze, and it is the duty of an educator to mentor, to foster creative thinking. He believes in education that makes a learner learn, try, and experience, and innovate. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Agar.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Ms. Rupa Chakravarti with us, Director Education, Sun City Schools. Mrs. Rupa Chakravarti is the founder principal of Sun City World School. She's currently the Director Education, Sun City Schools. She's also a Cambridge certified teacher for English as a second language, IGCSE, from Cambridge, 2004. Mrs. Rupa is also an advisor to US News and Education Program. She's a member of the Managing Committee of Schools. She has been trained for leadership strategies at IIM Ahmedabad as an IB coordinator at Arizona, USA, and for handling of adolescents' behavior in Worcester, US. She has been a master trainer for the most of training imparted by CBSE and CBSE International Curriculum. She has been training principals and teachers abroad on behalf of CBSE. Welcome, ma'am. A pleasure having you over here. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Meena Kak, the director of Lakshmipad Singhania Academy, Kolkata. She has served the school as the principal for more than a decade. The school has grown in leaps and bounds under her leadership and is the #1 CBSE school in West Bengal and in Kolkata as per Education World School ranking for the last 7 years. She holds a master's degree in organic chemistry from Christ College, Kanpur, and has 40 years of experience in her profession. She is the recipient of a number of awards, the most prestigious ones being the CBSE National Award from Ministry of Human Resource, New Delhi, in 2006 for her contribution in the field of education, and the National Award for Teachers 2010 from the Honorable President of India in 2011. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks, Shagun.
All right. Dr. Jakpreet Singh have joined us, sir.
Not yet. We're still waiting, but let's kind of introduce him, and as and when he joins, we'll. Yeah.
All right. So we will also have Dr. Jakpreet Singh joining us, who's the headmaster of the Doon School. So Sir is an eminent educationist of India. He studied in Ajmer, Rajasthan, where he was a gold medalist in Rajasthan University. His family runs a chain of hotels in Ajmer and Pushkar. Since childhood, he wanted to teach and contribute to a child's growth and development. He believes that teacher is the most powerful influence on a child. Therefore, he started his journey at Mayo College, Ajmer, where he served for 24 years as a history teacher, cricket coach, housemaster, and finally vice principal of Mayo College. During his tenure at Mayo College, he was a part of teacher exchange program with distinguished institutions like Eton College, UK, and King's College, Australia. Thereafter, he moved to the Punjab Public School, Naba, as a headmaster for 10 years and brought laurels to the school nationally. He's the Honorable Secretary and Sports Director of IPSC School. Last but not the least, we have Parikshit sir with us, who would be moderating the panel. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Shagun. Once again, a very warm welcome to all our distinguished panelists, Dr. Bali, Ms. Kark, Mr. Rao, Ms. Rupa, and of course, Dr. Singh, who will be joining us shortly. Thank you so much for giving us your precious time. And it's always an honor to host all of you. Now, dear participants, you've been waiting for the panel discussion. Of course, the topic is the changing scenario as far as the board exams are concerned. So today, how will we go about the panel discussion? First, we are definitely going to be discussing as to what was the scenario, okay, the earlier scenario, which is pre-2020. And then, of course, 2021, what all has changed. And now this year, we'll be having term 1 and term 2 as far as the Indian curriculum, the Indian boards are concerned. We will also be discussing what is the transition, where are we today with the new setup. And of course, the new setup doesn't come without challenges. New setup has its own challenges. So we'll be discussing that also, and we'll be closing it with suggestions for the board as well as for the schools. So I'd request we will go and have a perspective or opening statements from our panelists. Dr. Bali, let's start with you. And I would request each one of the panelists to take about 60 to 90 seconds to kind of share your perspective on the topic, please.
Thank you, Mr. Dana. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity. And I'm really delighted and honored to be in the company of these great educators. Demystifying board examination is in itself is a big question, because since donkey's years or time immemorial, we have been cribbing about board examinations. But unfortunately, nothing has happened till now. I think, but what COVID has done for us, which we can look at positively, is that it has shaken the waters a bit. It has forced us to think out of the box as to how we can handle the board examinations and how we can make things more meaningful and learning centered for the children. So I'm looking forward to this interaction, and I'm sure there will be quite a lot of takeaways from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mrs. Kark, over to you, please.
See, I would like to make it a little lighter and say that my husband is able to calculate and estimate faster than me. Is it that he had a better education than me? Was he in a better school than me? No. I think his teacher, maths teacher especially, taught him what was required in day-to-day life. That is what we call experiential learning. So I just want to say, irrespective of we talk big, okay, we have brought education, national education policy, and we will be making change in the teaching pedagogies and evaluation pattern and all that. But everything will boil down to the teachers' training. I feel unless the teachers are trained, we cannot move forward. That's why we're introducing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And definitely, is your husband listening to the panel discussion right now?
No, he's not here. Always we have argument. He within I think 15 seconds, a long calculation, he will give me the answer, and I will scratch my head how he's able to do it. It's so fast. And I met his maths teacher when I got married. So I wonder, I see what he taught him. So I think teacher can make all the difference.
True. True.
I might be, my education was in better school than his, but he has more of experiential learning than me. I can say that.
Done. Done. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rao, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And, thank you everybody for inviting me to attend this event. I think, whenever I think about board exams, I think back to the fairly traumatic experience that I had as a student as well. And that's the only word that I can use to describe it. I loved school until I gave my first board exam. And then I survived my first board exam, and I loved school till I had to give my second one. And, I can assure you the amount of time I spent trying to prepare for those exams. If now, all these years later, you asked me to give the exact same paper, I'm quite sure I will not even pass. And I worked so hard to make that happen. Is that learning? I think it's a great tragedy of so many people who've been through this educational experience of being to whatever kind of school you've been through, to remember everything outside of their classes as their memories of school, and very rarely associated with what the eventual outcome was. If you ask everybody, why did you go to school? I don't think anybody will ever tell you that I went to school to give a board exam. They'll talk about all kinds of things. Are they learners, or are they examinees and examination attenders? I think that is a really crucial question for us to continue to ask all these years later. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Dr. Singh is here with us. Good evening. Good to see you. We'll just come back to you in a moment. Ms. Rupa, your opening remarks, please.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I begin with a question. Is the exam be all and end all? Whether it be the past one or the present one. And if dreams are what determine your life, then I have had very fearful dreams about exams. So I would leave it at this and continue later. Thank you.
Thank you. All of you are coming with very, very unique opening remarks, right? Great. Wow. Dr. Singh.
Well, thank you so much, Parikshit, for having me here, and thank you to Mindler, because it's always been a pleasure coming on this platform. And hello to everyone on this panel. Everyone is so educated. I look a little dwarf here coming in and peeking now in between. But having said that, my opening remark will be very, very different than all what you would have been thinking. I'm just saying, why do we need an evaluation board? I mean, are we looking for schools, or are we looking for which school has which evaluation board, and what evaluation board will assess what? The pressures we are building is not in schools. Pressure we are building is with evaluation boards, which are agencies. We are talking about the agencies here who are conducting the exams and making schools come under pressure. Schools have their own curriculum to run on. Schools may have their own design and own curriculums. But what has happened is the enforcement factor comes with the agencies, which is the board we are doing. What type of a board amendments are coming in? What type of a pattern or a design is coming in? So the trauma on a child is not coming to the school, as what Arjun was saying. I loved it. He loves his school days. The only thing he doesn't want to remember is his exam days. And exam days is not school, it's the board. And that's the agency which gives you a certificate to say you passed out from a board, not from the school. The school has given you something very different. So I'll come with more ideas, but I always think different from others. So I always say evaluation boards are the hat which we are wearing, which doesn't make us look like what we are. But because we are wearing that hat and we are looking like that, but that is the pressure points what we need to release. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Let's start looking at all the things that you mentioned, right from stress for students to rote learning system, to teachers, as Ms. Karp talked about, to parental pressure and societal pressure to get more and more marks, all right? Ms. Rupa, I'm coming back to you to say, let's first talk about, before we go to the new system, from the old system, how stressful are the exams for the students? And what kind of stress?
You know, the first thing we must remember is the exams themselves may not be stressful. But what is stressful is the expectation that is there from parents, from the community, from the school, which makes it stressful. You got your boards ahead of you. You better be careful. This is your board year. You better. So I think it just builds up. The student may not be that edgy or that wary, but we adults ensure that we plant that seed of fear, that seed of humongous milestone you are going to be reaching. That leads to that ultimate fear, that ultimate thought that what am I getting into? So I think we need to stop doing this, and we need to make it multifaceted and from different platforms to ensure there's not one platform where they are gauged or examined from. So it is a Viva, it's a project, it's a pen and paper, it is a plethora of things, including all stakeholders, even what they do with the community, how they serve the environment, what they do for people around them, what is it that they are doing in their, in creativity. So I think what we require, we have assessment, but we need to ensure that it is a lateral form of assessment that comes if we have assessment. Let me put it, of course, we can be radical and say no assessments, but if we do have assessments, because like they say, if you could be one who swims well, another could be climbing well. So we need to cater to everybody's multiple intelligences and ensure that all intelligences and all senses are addressed when the examination or the test or the assessment or no assessment, if at all, are taken care of. It is about learning. It is not about what you regurgitate and write on paper. So we need to understand the learning that has been internalized, and that happens through your life. It doesn't end with the school. So let us begin with how, and this is something I've spoken in another platform, that you have school, you have tertiary, and you have your work area, your workforce wherever you are. And then you should have one where you have a compiled assessment sheet which builds up, and maybe at the end where at 60, you have some assessment coming out of what you have done through the years. How is it that we just finish? I understand we need to choose our subjects, but there are many other ways of choosing it rather than just that pen and paper. But I'm glad things are moving, and there is an evolving of mindset. So that's a good sign, that this static has become dynamic.
Great. And we'll definitely talk about the transitioning. Dr. Bali and Ms. Kak, I'll come back to you after Dr. Bali. Is now, instead of one single entrance, one single exam at the end of the year, we have term 1 and term 2. So how different is it going to be? Instead of one, we have 2 exams.
Correct. It's not going to make any much difference. I think it's a farce when we say that now the 2 terms they'll be tested. I'll take from where Dr. Jakpreet Singh left, and I'll also add one more comment here. One is there is so much which happens in the school life of a child. The learning happens day in and day out. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, they are tested only on a paper and a pen. And I was hoping that some brainstorming will happen this time around, and some new innovative ideas of testing the learning will happen. Unfortunately, instead of 1 exam, you have 2 exams. So what will schools do? They will not have their half-yearly exams. They will conduct the board exam. And trust me, most of the schools will end up having 1 more exam before that. So students, instead of having 4 exams in a year, might end up having 6, 7, 8 exams, because they will have a pre-final even before half-yearly exams now. Secondly, we are, I think, fundamentally wrong whenever we have conducted exams across the board. The reason being, we have never followed the backward design. We teach and then we test. We have to we have to list the end product first. What are we looking at? What we want them to learn, and then start teaching accordingly or start moving accordingly, which is called the backward design. I think that is what we need to do. There is a major brainstorming which has to happen, wherein you have to take ideas from the educators who are on the ground. And when I say educators, not the ones who are sitting in one set of schools and one set of boards. You see, within India, there are multiple boards, there are multiple kinds of schools, there are multiple levels. You need to incorporate all of them in, listen to them, hear them out. So it's very sad to say, but I don't see much of a difference with these two examination systems. It's going to make life easier or difficult. I think it's the same. Instead of one board exam, now you have two board exams.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Kar, now, as Dr. Bali feels that it may not make much of a difference, okay? But term 1 will have 50% of the syllabus. Term 2 will have the next 50% of the syllabus. Definitely, they'll be trying to connect the dots somewhere. So what is your take on how much of a difference will it make for a student?
See, now I would like to say it's going to make a difference, as Dr. Bali said, that instead of one exam, they will have 2 exams. Earlier, they were stressed only once, they will be stressed twice before giving their exam. And see, entire pattern I would like to speak about. See, the pattern that they have introduced, MCQ in the first semester and then subjective as well as objective in the second semester. If someone would have asked me, I would have said that it should be subjective in the first term and the objective MCQ in the second term. Now you will ask why. See, now all the approach to our curriculum all these years was subjective. It was not MCQ. It was not based on MCQ. Very small portion of MCQ was asked in the board exams. Now you are saying suddenly 50% will be MCQ, and that too when your content, your matter in your books is all subjective all these years. So teachers as well as students were not trained for MCQs. So I feel before introducing these MCQs, a kind of training was required for teachers and as well as for a practice for the children too. Suddenly you say that the next exam will be MCQ, and now the children, and it is not easy to frame MCQs. People might think, okay, it's very easy to frame MCQs. See, I would tell you about my subject when last year this began, these online classes. And I thought I have little time. Let me also help my teachers. I made 100 MCQs for in organic chemistry. That was my subject, and I burned midnight oil. I could see how difficult it was to make a question of MCQ, because you should have distractors also where you can define children, the child who understands the concept and the child who does not understand the concept. So as initially Dr. Bali said, we are in the ripples. Exactly, it is like that, because teachers are not trained how to make MCQs. Children are not trained how to solve MCQs, and we are asking them to give MCQ exam in the first term. In fact, it should have been that would have been a mixed bag in term 1, and term 2 it should have been MCQ. There is a little confusion in the mind of the children. That's what my take is.
No, I totally second that. In fact, I think our next panel discussion, maybe next month, can be only on MCQs. I mean, that in itself is a vast topic. Mr. Rao, I'm coming back to you. What Ms. Kak has touched upon, the teachers' training. Now, it is so essential, as Dr. Singh also talked about, and each one of you has talked about. Now, it is going to be so essential for a teacher to first understand how to frame MCQs, right? And this is also, it has to be competency mapping. I'll get into the difficulty part later. How important is the teacher's training internally? Because because the first set of exams is going to be in the school. Ms. Rupa, am I right?
Yes. Yes, it will be,
Yeah.
it depends upon the situation. If the
Absolutely.
situation is conducive, it will be in the school.
Right.
It will be offline exam, yeah.
So, Mr. Rao, how essential is the teacher's training here?
Well, I think in this, as in everything else, teacher training is the most important element that we're dealing with in schools. Whether it is MCQs or essays or objective or subject, for us to remember is, if the examination ends up being the be all and end all of an educational process, then are we going to be training teachers to teach to an exam? So there is an education, and then there is exam giving. I saw somebody's comment and saying, hey, is nobody in favor of exams on this panel? And I'll tell you that I am in favor of exams. I think they serve a very important purpose, but they serve one purpose only. And most examinations that we've administered, that we've given, have been of a particular kind of exam. Here is a question, answer this question, 3 marks, 3 points, 5 marks, 5 points, 8 marks, some essay and a diagram, underline it, you get 1 point more. Okay, that's one kind of exam. But what about learners, like Ms. Rupa mentioned, who have diverse ways of learning, who have diverse ways of presenting their ideas and their thoughts? Should we not have a space for those learners to be recognized? And for me, that is where my issue with exams comes in. Have exams by all means, but don't have them as the be all and end all and defining factor for a person. A learner must be given the opportunity to be the best student they can be. And if the exam system serves that purpose, excellent. If it doesn't, then we as educators must find ways to identify the right one. And that will eventually drive the kind of training that teachers will receive in schools and the expectations that will be outlined as such.
Very well put. Dr. Jagpreet, I'm coming back to you now. Again, back to the, what Ms. Scott talked about, teachers. How are they trained to make the MCQs and again, do the prep for the students? Because ultimately, if it's not term 1, term 2, subjective and MCQ, ultimately they are going to face the pressure. So how do we prepare them?
Parikshit, I honestly feel we need to change the mindset. The problem here is what Ms. Kark has rightly said. Are we prepared for this change? We are making change for the heck of changing. Now, my question, my humble appeal here is, why this MCQ question has suddenly come to the knowledge? I mean, is it anywhere different? I was talking to my set of boys, and they all are feeling, what is MCQ? I mean, is it only going to be the 4 options and we take 21, ina, mina, mina, more, and we just take one? Or is it going to be the depth of knowledge? Now, when we are talking about depth of knowledge, are we only talking about depth of knowledge about the subject? Where are the other components? We are not even touching those skills. We are not even touching the other tools what the student has. My only humble request here is, we are putting a lot of pressure on the teachers already. With this change pattern, the pedagogy has already changed. The teaching curriculums have already changed. We are all directionless at this moment. How do we approach a subject? We were till now mentally and in our own curriculums designed to teach in a way. Now, I love what Arjun said. He said, are we teaching to the board exam? That's not the education we would like our boys and girls to rise with. That is not the way we want our youth to come up with the skills. Where IB, I'm not comparing anyway, but IB is talking about now no more DP. They're talking about CP. They're going with the career programs. They're talking about vernacular. They're talking about skills. They're talking about vocation. They're talking about how the approach tomorrow after exam the boy and a girl approaches to. Here we are still struggling with whether it has to be a one-word answer or a subjective answer. I'm simply asking, is that one-word answer define the caliber of the boy? My only thing is, why are we not going for a very holistic picture? Education is not confined to objective or subjective. Teacher has to take a responsibility going to the class. You have confused the teacher. I loved one statement which in the chat I saw Wani Basim writing beautiful. You have a 100% syllabus, divide it into 4, have 4 exams, and then you decide what marks have come. Are we not going to be playing now? The boys and the girls sitting in the classroom, the young minds of India are mocking us. They are easily defining us. These people are directionless. They are playing with our future. And we are accountable. We have to take that accountability. If we do not change the mindset, we will not be able to change anything. We have to go to a very holistic picture. We'll have to approach education very scientifically. We cannot experiment. We have to give child an experiential learning, not experimenting learning. We are experimenting on the youth of India today. And I think we need to take that responsibility a little more seriously. Before we raise a finger to our teacher, oh, he's not taught well. He has not prepared the child well in the MCQs. Were we actually designed to do that? And how are the deciding factors? Parikshit, I asked people, who are the deciding factors that this component of a subject is tested MCQ and this subjective and this essay writing? Who's going to be the deciding factor? As what Dr. Bali said, the people who have to be asked are sitting in the schools. And who are the policy makers are the people who have not even entered the gates of the schools. Now, this is the irony and the satire of our system. I'm sorry, I'm being very blunt, but that is the fact.
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, that's the whole point of the panel discussion here. Ms. Rupa, I want to touch base on something. Now, on one side, we say the earlier system was rote learning, right? Now, I have a question here. My worry is the new system would require even more rote learning. Why? Because earlier, I could have a question. Now I will try and memorize every line in the chapter because I have no idea where the MCQ can come from. So I cannot leave even a single line in the chapter. So aren't we requiring more rote learning now? Over to you.
So let me begin by saying what we are doing, this is a bit of a clarification, is specifically for this year. Having kept in mind that last year we couldn't have examinations and there was no way to assess children, the CBSE has decided that this year they would divide it into 2 to ensure that we do not face a situation like last year. And I can say this with a lot of sanguineness because I'm aware that this is for this year only. Whether it will continue in the future is still a question mark, right? So that is the first thing that we need to understand. Where the MCQs are concerned, we need to understand where it is coming from and why it is happening, keeping in mind the pandemic, right? So we cannot absolve ourselves of the duty that teach well and then nothing matters, for the child. Where the problem arises is because we are not teaching well and we are only looking at the outcome. Assessment and teaching should go hand in hand. That is what is the ideal way of doing it, which NEP is talking about introducing soon. But we have to understand also that the MCQ will result in a lot more rote, as you said, if the child has not understood and not learned in a proper manner. Right. If the child has understood, internalized, whether you give an open book or whether you give an MCQ, it is not the end which matters. It is justifying that, right? So that is what we need to focus on. Does the means justify the end? When the means do not justify the end, we have vociferous, debates. But if the means justifies the end, there is no problem. And of course, there is good and there's bad. There are two sides to the coin. We do extremely well when we go abroad. There must be something good. But having said that, there systemic changes are required. And that is what is coming here. But this is more situation driven rather than driven by demands of pedagogy, etc. So I would like to, put a thing here. So keeping all these.
So thank you. So you are saying, as per you, that let's say this is a situation just for this year. Okay, hopefully this should not. But we cannot run away from the fact that maybe this also becomes a new norm, right? There's a possibility that
Absolutely.
we're not sure, but there's a possibility, right? Ms. Kark, I'm coming back to you here. Now, on one side, if I go by what all of you are trying to say, is that I need to understand the content. As Ms. Rupa says, if I know the content, I can handle the MCQs. My question is, what if I am not 100%, I don't have the grip of the fundamentals of the content, right? Now, all I have is MCQ will have only one right answer. And if I'm not able to, so what about those students who do not have the academic rigor, who have taken it easy, who did not have the conceptual clarity? I think it's a doomsday for them, because there is only one answer. And the moment I click Bombay or C and the answer is A, there is no escape for me. So how will they survive?
See, I would say that MCQ is not the right criteria to judge the child, because there will be a lot of guessing. So you would not know whether the child has understood that concept or not. Okay, there are 5 questions, I don't know the answer. Okay, I will just assume this is the correct answer, or I will just guess and I will tick mark it. So actually the child has not understood the concept, but by fluke, it seems to be that he has marked the correct answer.
Right.
So how would you assess the child? And now this child, when he's thrown open to the universities, to take the admissions in university, where does he stand? Because he has just guessed. These are MCQ, there is a lot of possibility of guessing. So if he guesses the answer, we don't know exactly where the child stands vis-a-vis his intelligence or understanding the concept.
True.
So I feel it will be more of a guessing then, and we will not know exact level of the child, where does he stand vis-a-vis the concepts that are there in the book. And I would say, as one of the panelists said, that it's not the question of how much do you get, marks do you get. What is more important? Have you learned all the skills? Learning skill is more important than the marks. There is so much of societal pressure. There's a pressure on the principals and the teachers also. When the result is declared, we have sleepless night thinking, oh, what will be the result like? Would it be better than last year? Or it will be worse? Or it will not be as good as that of last year? So now there will be stress twice with the teachers, principals, everyone will be thinking, okay, why my children have not fared well? So I would say that no objective, subjective, whatever they say, they should have prepared everyone well beforehand. And first, we should have seen the content of the books. All these years, as I said earlier, it was all subjective. So first, you revamp your content. The approach to the curriculum should be seen first. Then you decide the examination pedagogy. First, experiment with the teaching pedagogy, then experiment with the evaluation pattern. Here we are talking about evaluation pattern first, and then we are thinking about teaching pedagogies. It is reverse way, I feel.
No, I get that. And I've been reading the chat. Dear participants, dear colleagues, we are not just talking about mathematics, physics, science subjects. We also have language. We also have social science, humanities. I mean, how do you have MCQs in literature? I mean, my question to Mr. Rao is, how do you check the creativity of a student or the language skills in MCQs?
I mean, your guess, I think, is as good as mine, because I too am flummoxed by that thought process. I honestly, I don't have a response to that, but I have a response to something that someone has stated in the chat, which is around entrance exams and comparative exams also being governed by MCQs.
Right.
I think one part of that is to do with the question that you raised, the fact that there are very limited subjects that get tested here. But I'm going to put a slightly different spin on this. I remember reading some time back that statistically, it has been shown that people do not choose doctors on the basis of who performs more successful surgeries. They choose doctors on the basis of who has the best bedside manner. And I don't know if there is an MCQ test that can allow you to be assessed on how you feel, the kind of emotion you put out there, the empathy that you profess, the action that you demonstrate. Isn't that our purpose as educators? If you think about, and I encourage all the participants to think of this, who all are attending this, think about your favorite anybody. Do you remember them because they were really, really good at what they did? You may, but I don't think that's the only reason why you remember them. You remember them because of how they cared about you, how they made you feel, the impact that they had on you. How does an MCQ or any exam prepare you for that? I'm not sure. And I think we need to be able to find an answer to that, because otherwise we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're going right back to the doorstep of everything being driven by the idea of an exam.
Yep, completely with you there. Dr. Bali, coming back to you here, do you think if we were given little more time, maybe a couple of more months, because we are facing it, we are almost, knocking at the doors of October, and November is when the term one starts. So do you think if we had more training given to teachers, and maybe more time for us to set this up, to train students, because I think majority of the schools in India are not open, right? So it's again online. So you think we had maybe few more months, things would have been better?
I don't think it has something to do with the time. I think it has something to do with the path we have taken. Whether you do it 2 months from now, let's say we have conducted these examinations in January or February, what would have happened to the final examinations? And we would have been required to shift that as well. And again, it's not about training teachers for the examination. It's about getting the right cubes clubbed together in a right manner. For example, who stops us to think out of the box? Who stops the policymakers to call people from kindergarten all the way to university to sit in a conference room for a month, brainstorm it, come up with something which is meaningful, useful, helpful? Who stops them to say that, okay, how many papers has the child presented in his school life? How many question papers has the child set in a school life? Who says that you cannot divide, let's say if a school has 2 sections, A and B, who says that section A cannot set question paper for B and B cannot set question paper for A? The mindset is because we don't trust them. There are schools within the country who have no invigilator exam as well, right? Something which others might say, oh, the children are going to do this, do that, and so on and so forth. People have been talking about international curriculum, whether it is international baccalaureate or the Cambridge curriculum, stating that they are more inclusive in nature, they are more, better equipped, etc. I don't agree. Even if you look at them, I think 70 to 80% of their assessment is also based on paper and pen towards the end, right? So it's not about the timing of the examination. I think it's more about the thought process. It's more about putting the like-minded people or people with different mindset together. People who are actually into the classroom or who have been into their classrooms, who have spent lives into the classrooms, with the ones who are fresh graduate teachers into the classroom, bring them together. Let them brainstorm. I'm sure with all of us in this room, with all of our experience, we may have 10 ideas. So imagine if the other people are brought together. So it's not about the timing. It's not about the timing. In fact, looking at the timing, you feel if you want to delay it, it's better get it done now rather than late. So it's more than the timing. I think the approach was not correct.
Thank you. Before I go to Dr. Jakpreet again, Ms. Ruma, I want to ask you, since I know that you've also been on the committee, right? Of course, we've discussed many challenges, but can you share a few other challenges that you see with the new norm?
See, for everything in life, there has to be, and challenges make life interesting. and overcoming them makes life meaningful. So I guess these challenges are going to prepare us with other skills like resilience, etc. So, when we are myopic in our approach or in our mindset, then we only see certain aspects that we want to see. We need to have a view of the whole spectrum, because there'll always be negatives. There'll always be people who will feel this is not good, this is not right. It's going to happen. So I'm not looking at that. Like I said earlier too, we need to understand whether the classroom teaching is happening properly. Let the exam be something which comes, whether it be a hindrance or help, that depends on the person's perception. So let us make sure, and like I think Mr. Bali said just now, it's up to us to determine how well we teach them in the class. Why is it that we are so examination focused, whether it's good or bad? If the learning happens, the outcome in the examination will happen. And rote learning is not what the examination determines. This is a big mistake we make while discussing examination. Rote learning happens because we have not aroused the curiosity of the child while we are doing an approach to teaching and learning, and that's why rote learning is happening. And if we teach them well, the examination will go well. So it is not the other way around, that the examination is the thing we need to focus on. We need to focus on the learning. I hope I've made myself clear, because there is a bandwagon over here which goes before or after kind of situation.
I'm with you there, but isn't that a catch-22, Ms. Rupa?
It can be a catch-22 if you are focusing only on the examination. Who has stopped us from teaching them well? Who has stopped us? Tell me.
I'm with you, but I'm saying, and I'll take it forward, Mr. Jakpreet, Dr. Jakpreet, I'm coming back to you here. No, I completely endorse the viewpoint here. But what I'm saying is, if we are saying the teachers have to teach, right? But who will teach the teachers to train well?
Absolutely.
Ultimately, again, a catch-22. Teachers, please understand, they are also part of the entire system. They have also been part and parcel of the system that's been going on for decades. So how on earth in one single day or in few months, we can ask the entire system to shift? So Dr. Jakpreet,
See, I'll be very honest. Let's come to the ground reality. Are we prepared? Are we prepared in our hardwares? Are we prepared to take this challenge? Let's come to the ground reality, I'm saying. I'll give you a small example, and let's go countrywide doing a survey. When the children were taking their MCQs in the mid-year trials, in the exams, what have recently schools have conducted, sitting at home, have you ever taken into account the mass dishonesty which has happened?
absolutely.
Why? Because the predicted grades going to the universities abroad will depend on these exams.
Yes.
And these exams, because the boards have announced, will be MCQs. So schools will also have to conduct MCQs.
Yes.
My only humble request is, when they write the extended essays and when they have to give on their IAs, I'm asking simple question: where is the critical thinking? Where is the power of research? Where is the creative writing? Where are the communication skills? Where is the language skills of the boys and girls? We've taken all of them away by just announcing it is MCQ. My only humble request again to the panel is, think, are we allowing dishonesty to come in? Boys are boys, girls are girls, they're young blood. For a mark, I saw WhatsApp groups suddenly more active than ever before.
Yeah, because it's
There were
all happening.
snapshots going everywhere. Hey guys, this is the answer. The whole class got 100 out of 100. Well, are we going to proctor online exam? Are we ready for that? I was talking to IMA, Pariksha, just now, an hour back. IMA is making a research of taking the online exam in a way so that there may be not dishonesty. When there are researches going on, we have announced after 2 months, we are going MCQs. Where will the MCQs happen? No answer. Will it happen proctored in the school? Will it happen sitting at home? Will it happen anywhere where you feel like? Answers are not known to us. But we believe we will go for the MCQs. But I'm saying we should have, what Dr. Bali was saying was right. We should have thought backward. Are we ready? Are we ready for these skills? Are we ready with this infrastructure? Okay, there are schools in the villages, in rural areas, which does not have bandwidth. How will they take the online exams? The situation is bad in the country. There is no network in certain areas. If the child does not take a MCQ, what will happen to him? Have you ever thought about those concerns? We are just trying to make a policy without even making a research. And what we are actually taking away from the child is now allowing them to take the skills away. Just one word, fill in anywhere. Next is the, I'm coming you. I'm going to take a Viva. Your Viva will decide your exam. We are now going to hit more badly. I think this is where the think tank of India needs to sit down. Such deliberations, such platforms have to get activated. And people sitting like this on the panel, I'm sure Ms. Rupa must be thinking, let's come to a little more authentic. Let's come to a little more critical approach and see what will benefit to our boys and girls rather than just making policies.
Yep, I'll just share one point, Dr. Japri, that you talked about. I was talking to a school principal without naming the school, and she was saying, I wanted to do an experiment in school. So what did we do? We took a test, and in the test, everyone scored like 80s and 90s. Then after about 20-25 days, they conducted a test. They made it mandatory for one of the parent to sit while the students were taking tests. And after that, the grades were 45 to 60% because they said it was mandatory for one single parent to sit in the room. So they were so scared. They were like, Parikshit, we are in a catch-22. We want to ask them to come to school so that we invigilate. But how do we do this? And this generation is 1,000 times smarter, right? Okay, now, I know there are challenges.
There's a boy who was written in Manipur. Even college hardly have bandwidth, and students in hilly regions do not even have network for days.
Yep.
Now, this is a boy writing on the chat. I'm worried about this.
Yep, true. Okay, with about another 10-12 minutes to go, let's change the gear. And thank you so much. We've had a wonderful conversation on the previous regime and the challenges that the new one offers. My question to you, all of you again, Dr. Bali, we're starting with you. Supposing this is here to stay, and if this is to stay, what would be your suggestion to the board? And I'm coming to each one of you. What are your suggestions to the board? I know they may not be listening to us today, or they may be, but let's talk about that. Dr. Bali.
If it is here to stay, I would just ask them to incorporate a few more things in terms of learning, which are learning centric. For example, involve the component of internships for children, involve the component of paper writing for children, and carry a weightage for that as well. And please, for God's sake, do not make a huge issue out of these examinations, because at the end of the day, those 15, 16-year-olds, first there was a fear of writing first board exam. Now there is a fear of writing 2 board exams. And my suggestion to my fellow colleagues and the educators is, please educate your children from early years on for these examinations. Work on their mental strength, work on their critical thinking, compassion, creativity, so that they take it as one-off exam and they don't look at only as the examination, which is very, very important. That mindset has to change. So if this has to stay, I think the educators can still turn around the things and make it happen for better. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Kak, before I ask you to respond, I would request all my fellow panelists, there are about 8-9 questions in the Q&A. If any one of you feels like, any one of you, you could just answer a few of them, please. It's like, in case you can. Ms. Kak, what are few suggestions you'd like to take?
About to the board.
That's right.
See, I would like to suggest to the board that if you are giving 50% weightage to the academics, give 50% weightage to the other skills that the children have learned. So you can assess the complete personality of the child. This is my suggestion to the board. It should not be only academic oriented. It should be what the child has learned throughout his stay in the school. It might be confidence, it might be resilience, it might be empathy and problem solving, critical thinking, whatever it is. So 50%, let it be academic, another 50% should be. It might be very, it might be very kind of a revolutionary kind of a change. But I suggest this is the only way out during this pandemic. As ma'am said, Rupa ma'am said that it's other way around. That is what we think. But I think that if we want to assess the complete personality of the child, I would suggest that 50% academic, 50% other characteristics or other personality traits of the child should be assessed so that we know the complete personality of the child.
Mr. Rao, your suggestions. And I would need two of them. One to the board and second to fellow principals, educators, please.
Okay. So to the board, like my other panelists have mentioned, I think we do need a way of holistically assessing learner competence. I think it is very linear, the current method that we have, and we have to find ways to allow able to find assessments and schooling and education accessible. And we all must, like Mr. Bali had mentioned, we must all find ourselves in the room where we can all have these conversations. And perhaps it is time that schools moved from, and this one is for the principals, I think it's time schools moved from being the recipients of policy to the creators of policy. Instead of us waiting to be told the next exam will be like this, the next session will be like this, why cannot the thousands and thousands of principals of schools in India gather and decide that our next examination will be conducted like this, in this manner, and present that to the board? Since everyone is saying that people don't visit schools, they don't know what's happening in schools, let us present the reality to the world. And I'd be very happy to partner with any principal who wants to take me up on that.
Thank you. That was a very nice thought. Ms. Rupa.
Yes, so I think I would like to say that we need to focus on what we test. That is very important, that what are we testing? If you test the child in all its multiple intelligences, then whatever is my strength, I'm a sports person. I played hockey for Maharashtra. I did acting and I was almost going into the film industry at one point of time because I had filled up the IIFT form. What I'm trying to say is I learn best when I learn through sports. So we need to first understand what we have to test. The next thing that we need to understand is how to do that testing. Through multi-pronged means we need to do that testing. One thing that we should definitely focus on is ask children to make question papers and use those. And we do this in our school, so it is very, very helpful. We ask children to make questions and you will find questions which you've not thought of coming from those children because they're so creative. Also, we give them to see and check the syllabi when we finish teaching the first semester. So every year, year on year, we are 15-year-old school in the 16th year, we ask children for the last 10 years to look at the syllabi, which is a very extensive syllabi with SDGs, with MIs, etc., that we involve them in the decision making, right? So that is something which we could do. E-portfolios or portfolios are another thing, because we've started that every anecdotal record of the child, all photographs, etc., are put into this e-portfolio so that you have a wholesome approach and a comprehensive and continuous approach to the assessment, which came along. CCE was like bruised, poor fellow. when it came to India and went off hurt. But we are definitely, we take a little time to accept change. But again, I say, who's stopping us in our schools to make the learning the way it is conducive and suits a child, and involve that child in that? The assessment will happen. It's like going to Auntie Indu's place. You have to go to Auntie Indu's place, okay? The rest of it you play at home, but Auntie Indu's place you need to go. Let's take examination as Auntie Indu's place, where I hate going, but I have to cross that bridge because, you know, my parents will be happy. Sorry for the bad analogy, but I think it is very important to tell this to the board that we need to have multi-pronged ways of examining, because every child is different, and we have to have also what we test different ways. Having said that, I'm on the design thinking committee, where we are bringing problem solving for children in a big way. And we are working with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship. You will find a very new approach coming in through all the suggestions, etc., of NEP, and also what maybe some of you are mentioning here, you know. So there is going to be a huge paradigm shift. We have to have an open mind, because the mindset has become a set mind.
Okay. Okay.
And that is what is, you know, creating problems. So hopefully there's going to be a dynamic and radical change come 23 onwards, but it's going to happen slowly. The MCQs and the subjective that has happened this year, is happening this year, is more situational, but we will wait and watch what the future entails and how we are going to have so many, because there's going to be no silos between subjects. It's going to be an integrated approach. Many schools, I'm sure the panelists who are here are already doing it. We do it. We have integrated subject approach in our school, you know, and involve children, because they are the end users. They will give you the best. We adults look from our perspective, but they have a different, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we hope this is only a situational response. Next year, we are in a much better situation. My biggest worry is NEP implementation, right? I hope that that really takes care. Dr. Jagpreet, your suggestions to the board, please.
I'll give two suggestions. I'll give one to the board and one to the students. So one to the board is, when we are thinking so much, and there's what I hear Ms. Rupa really doing some creative work, sitting as an advisor to the board and to the committees, why can't we just have open book exam? Why can't we see, making a paper is an art, it's a design. You say you're doing a lot of designing work, so let's have a design that how can we create. A lot of countries, Germany, Spain, Finland, America, they all are now doing open book examinations. So we don't have to proctor the exams. We are not in a fear of having an exam where they will be assessed by the marks and so, of course. My only humble request is, why can't we design an exam which does not even have a fear, even if a child can open a book, does not matter. Let's be that creative. That will be one great step towards Indian education and towards the evaluating system of what we talk about. Please keep in view, which I'm sure you are, to the board, this is my humble request, keep in mind the special need children. I don't know, we have got everyone on the same platform. It looks like an MCQ, everybody's going to eat from the same platter. So I don't see the special need children, how will they look into this? But I'm sure there would be some outcome to that. To the girls and boys who are listening to me and who would be hearing me out today, live your life. This is the best years you are in. As what Arjun said, as what Dr. Bali would remember, the best days were in the school days. Sitting in the chairs and the benches of the school were one of the most glorious days we ever remember. So live these years, leave the evaluation, leave the testing to the boards. It will not make a difference. What Ms. Rupa just talked about, this is what I keep telling every boy and girl I meet. I said, please start preparing your portfolios. It is not your grades, it's not your marks tomorrow which will be seen. It will be seen what you have achieved in other areas. In fact, I was in one of the webinar with one of the King's College UK. We were having a conversation and she said, because of the different grades which are coming now because of the pandemic, we are going to see the portfolios of the children. We are going to ask now the recommendations from the activities and the sports and other areas and services, what the children have been engaged in. So my sincere advice is, don't wait for tangibles. Start working for intangibles. As what we all have been talking about, let your not school take away your emotions. Let your school not take away empathy. Let your schools not take away your value systems. This evaluation, testing, board examination is only a part, very meaningful part of your life. Don't let it hamper your growth.
Yep.
Enjoy your school life. All I can say is universities will accept you on what you are in a larger picture. These are going to be a very small impact when you're now entering into the universities. Universities are very mindful of this fact, by the way. Thank you very much.
Completely with you. And I know we've overshot time. Just one last request to all my panelists. Take maybe 30 seconds, just one message, because we haven't talked about the role of parents here. Dear participants, I know there are a lot of things that I'm sorry, this is a vast topic, therefore we cannot do justice to every question, everything that you've been asking. A quick word, one line, two line from all my fellow panelists to the parents. The board exams will be here in another month and a half. What would you like to send a message? One message to the parents. Ms. Rupa, let's start with you. Quick ones, please.
Yeah, so I began by saying that it was the stress or the expectations of the parents which result in what the children go through. I think it comes from the fact that it has become an extremely competitive world. We cannot deny that. I remember parents who moved from the US during 2006 when the school started, and they used to say, Ms. Chakravarti, why are you having competitions? So I used to say one thing to them: stop the promotions in your corporate world and I'll stop competitions. We need to prepare them for the real world. If there is that competition in the corporate world for promotions, we have to also follow suit with education lower down.
Dr. Bali, message for parents.
I'll just say, be friends to your kids. Give them as much love you can, because ultimately these challenges will be thrown at them, whether it is the board examinations or life. Unless you make them mentally tough, emotionally stable and strong, nothing is going to help them. So be friends to them and be there for them. Tell them that you're watching their backs and just be with them. There are certain things which are beyond their control. My dad used to say, if there's something you can change, why worry? And if there's something that's just beyond your control, why worry? So that's the approach I think we need to take.
So, thank you. Ms. Kak.
I would say that let them learn to teach them to take the responsibility of their own learning and give them wings to fly.
Mr. Rao.
I think parents should continue to, like they did when their children were babies, to trust their gut. Their child is going to be special and amazing because they are their children. Just because a child doesn't do well in an exam, you're not going to turn them out of your house. You're not going to refuse them love. They are your children. They are going to be with you, for you, as part of your family forever. That is what we must focus on.
Dr. Singh.
Very quick chat. Parikshit, they are asking you that please get IPSC schools on your panel. So I want to tell Manini, I am the honorary secretary of the IPSC, who's soon going to be taking the chair. So don't worry, I'm representing the IPSC community here. Don't worry about that. Coming to the message to the parents, please stop living your childhood dreams in the childhood of your parents. Stop being aspirational. Let your children live. There's a whole generation gap. Please let your children live and enjoy their childhood. Let them live in this era. This is different than what we lived. Let them enjoy. Let them not come under pressure by your aspirations. That's all I have to make to the parents.
Thank you so much. And I'd also like, I've kind of got motivated, and I'd also like to share something. As Indians, we are very, very risk averse, and the thought of failing an exam or failures and the Western world rejoices in failure. My one request to all of us, all the parents and the peers who are listening to me is, I believe there is nothing called fear. It is, or failure. It is just course change. That's all. If one way does not work, we'll find out the second way. It is nothing but that. However, easier said than done. This would also require, as my panelists have said, this would require an attitudinal shift and a mindset change, right? Huge. It's very easy because it's easy to say, but you have to walk the talk. So thank you so much, dear panelists. It's been wonderful having you here. And to our dear participants, they have been here with us since 9 in the morning. And it's amazing. There are still close to 400 of them. Even after 1 hour, 10 minutes, they are here with us, listening to us. Thank you so much to each one of you. Mindler team, are you here?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists for taking out time and sharing their valuable inputs with us. Thank you, PD sir, for moderating this panel. Excellent job as always. And thank you to all our participants for joining in. We will be meeting again tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. sharp for Chadha sir's session. Have a great evening, everyone.
Once again, thank you to Dr. Jagpreet, Ms. Rupa, Mr. Rao, Dr. Bali, Ms. Kak. Indebted, obliged and indebted.
Thank you, Prakshit. Good moderation as usual.
Thank you, Parikshit. And thank you
Thank
all
you
the
so
panelists.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Dr.
Good to
Bali,
see
you look
Thank
very
you so
comfortable
much.
in your new chair. You look very handsome, more handsome now. Gujarat has done you a lot of good. Arjun, he was never like this in Doon, and now after Hyderabad, he looks much more classy in this chair now.
I mean, yeah, I know we are still on a public forum. The other day I was talking to Dr. Bali and I said, the way you are moving, I think the next gate is politics in life, because moving closer and closer to the power center.
Yes, you said it, PD. You said it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
All the
you.
very
Bye.
best, Bali. All the best, Rao.
Thank
Bye.
you.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Good to meet you.
Bye, Shagun. Take
Yes,
care.
sir.